Hey, Living in Liberty with Peewee here. Today we're going to take a journey up to Cumberland County, and we're going to find the starting place for the Caney Fork River. Now, if you go out on Center Hill Lake, or you're familiar with Rock Island State Park, or maybe even Center Hill Dam and the Caney Fork River below the dam, you're probably wondering, or maybe you've never looked into it, where does the Caney Fork River begin? It begins up in Cumberland County, just off of the Plateau Road exit. So we're going to go there today. We're going to take some footage of the river as it gets to Rock Island, which is the Great Falls Dam there, then also Center Hill Lake, and then Center Hill Dam, and then the Caney Fork River below the dam. And you say, how does this relate to Liberty? Well, listen, the Caney Fork River itself is 143 miles long. It dumps into, or it eventually gets to, the Cumberland River. Now, the Smith Fork Creek that runs through Liberty, Smith Fork Creek, it empties into the Caney Fork River over at a place called Sebo-Wishy, or Sebo-Wisha, whichever way you want to say that. If you're from Lancaster, not Lancaster, if you're from Lancaster, you're going to say Sebo-Wishy. And so there's a train track that runs over the Smith Fork Creek, right where it dumps into the Caney Fork River. And so Smith Fork Creek is related to the Caney Fork in that it empties into the Caney Fork. The Caney Fork then empties into the Cumberland River. And so today we're going to go find the beginning point of the Caney Fork River. Again, it's 143 miles long. It's impressive in terms of how much fall there is between Cumberland County and Great Falls Dam at Rock Island, which is in the edge of Warren County, right there in the edge of Warren, White, and DeKalb. And so today on this video, we're going to take a deep dive on the Caney Fork River and see where it begins. So thanks for tuning in, and check this out. So you see the cross coming into view up here on this hill near this water tower, and my thought was it'd be great to build one of those somewhere around Liberty. Liberty is about to have a large tower placed on one of its hills, and I know we didn't really want that, but I wonder if I were to raise the money to build a cross like this and place somewhere in Liberty, I wonder if it'd be supported. Now, from what I understand, it cost about $85,000 to build one of these crosses, start to finish. That is, if someone has donated the piece of land to put it on. And but that is the concrete, the steel, permits, lighting. Of course, you have to have some land that has some electricity that you can get power to the lighting for the cross. But anyhow. What about a cross like that in Liberty? That's just a side thought as I'm heading toward Crossville. I love those crosses. All right, so I got off I-40 onto Plateau Road. I took a right, as you can see. The starting place of the Caney Fork River, it originates on some private property. So out of respect for the no trespassing sign, I did not go down that long driveway. But it begins with, from what I understand, there's some wetlands there, some springs, and there's some ponds with some small dams, and the Caney Fork River starts there just off of Plateau Road, again on some private property. Then the Caney Fork runs out of that property down to some other wetlands, another ponding effect, which is right there close to Highway 70. So here are a couple of pics. The first pic is the north side of Highway 70. You see that? The second pic here to the south side of Highway 70. Again, it's private property. There's no fishing, no trespassing signs there. You'll see the this ponding effect. Looks like about a 3 or 4 acre pond, something like that. But that's the Caney Fork, and it's running there. At the end of that pond, there's a dammed up end of it, an earth dam, and it lets out water on the other end. And then the Caney Fork begins to run freely as gravity would take it through these hills or down into these low places. And so now I am on Bud Tanner Road, and that is south of Highway 70. And we're going to cross over the Caney Fork River here in just a moment. And we're going to see that it's just a small stream. And it's interesting how most things in this life that end up large have very humble beginnings. So anyhow, we'll see it in just a moment. All right, so here I'm on Bud Tanner Road here just off of Highway 70 North. Again, that's off of Plateau Road, just off of I-40. And so behind me here is where the Caney Fork River is coming from that area that I just showed you some photos from. It meanders down through the hills, and now we're at the bottom of this hill. I'm not sure what kind of elevation change is here. I know that the Caney Fork River drops over 200 feet by the time it gets to Great Falls Dam in Rock Island. But over my shoulder there is the Caney Fork River. And this photo I'm going to show you right now is the other side of the road where it's heading downstream. All right, we are on Sparta Highway. This is west of Crossville in the Pleasant Hill community. And we're about to see the Caney Fork River pass underneath this highway. So the last photos I just showed you were Wilkerson Creek. So Wilkerson Creek then merges into the Caney Fork, and the Caney Fork then travels yet a few more miles to get to this location that we're about to shoot. So here we are on Sparta Highway, just west of Crossville, near the Pleasant Hill community. The Caney Fork has picked up one creek so far, Wilkerson Creek. I showed you that just a moment ago. And now it has meandered its way here to Sparta Highway. A lot of noise behind me. I'm on a road here. And so this is north of Sparta Highway, and it runs underneath this highway. It goes over to the south side. And so it got its beginnings in some wetlands back off of Plateau Road with one or more springs. Goes through a couple of variations of ponds and dams, meanders through the hillside. Now this is the south side of Sparta Highway, and again it's picked up one creek, and so let's see where we go from here. A little bit of traffic on the Sparta Highway. I'm risking my life for this video, so it's worth it. All right, we're turning on Browntown Road. This is south of Sparta Highway, still in Cumberland County, so chasing the Caney Fork. All right, we are on Taylor's Chapel Road, and here's where the Caney Fork crosses underneath this road. All right, here we are again at the Caney Fork River. Over my shoulder here, it is crossing underneath Taylor's Chapel Road. Again, we are in Cumberland County, up on the Cumberland Plateau. And so far, the Caney Fork River has picked up a handful of creeks and streams. Wilkerson Creek, Fox Hollow Creek, Poke Patch Creek, Mud Branch, and there's a few others. It's gaining momentum as it picks up different streams and branches along the way. Of course, this is watershed. We're talking about water that comes off of hillsides and land and gathers into branches, then into creeks, and then they merge. And all of these are merging into the Caney Fork. And so here we are still in Cumberland County. And listen, we are in obscurity right here. I'm telling you right now, hang on, was that a tree knock? I think there's a Sasquatch somewhere near here. I mean, this is like Bigfoot country. Without a doubt, if I were to hear a Bigfoot yell, I would say this would be where they would live. And so I did pack my SIG with me today, so I am prepared if I do face something. So anyhow, back on the road again. Let's see where the Caney Fork takes us now. All right, my next stop, I'm here at Clifty Road. This is a bridge that goes over the Caney Fork River. From the last video where I was on Taylor's Chapel to now, a handful of miles of river, it's picked up a number of creeks and streams, too many to count. I need to find the original, or find the official rather, count of how many streams and branches feed into the Caney Fork River. It's already a number of them, and again, it's building up some volume. But here, it's nice. A little bit of a swimming hole. Go over to the south side of the bridge, and we've got people that are on tubes and on knee boards there. That's kind of cool. A little bit of a waterfall there. This is a nice spot. You can see, you just drive right down to the water there. Like these folks have. Let's watch them slide down. Looks like about a 5-foot drop there. Oh, gonna flip. Anyhow, Clifty Road. This is the Caney Fork River. You can begin to tell that when this picks up a lot of volume, that the river is already widened. It's already able to take more volume. Caney Fork River, heading south. We'll see you at the next stop. All right, so the Caney Fork River, then from Clifty Road, it begins to go into obscurity. There's absolutely hardly any roads that intersect with it, and it goes for miles and miles. It drops elevation a number of times. So I had to double back around and come back to Sparta Highway. Went through Bondecroft, Bonaire, and now I'm here at this scenic overlook here overlooking Sparta. You can see Short Mountain off in the distance, and it's one of my favorite places. Wonderful view here on a clear day. This is an amazing place. This next video, I'm going to point to where Liberty is and where Short Mountain is. All right, so if you take a look at Short Mountain, you can see it over there, over the top of that little peak. Short Mountain's way off in the distance. And then right through that valley there, you can see that heads towards Smithville and Liberty. Let's see if I can zoom in towards Short Mountain a little bit better. Maybe you can see it. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on this video or not, but we're way up here on the hill. Again, we're just on the Cumberland Plateau looking over Sparta, following the Caney Fork. All right, we're here in Sparta, out in the country a little bit. We're turning left onto Lester Flat Road. Lester Flat, bluegrass artist, was from Sparta. And this road, I guess, named after him. I imagine he may have grown up out in this area. But anyhow, we're tracing the Caney Fork River, and we're on its heels. All right, we're here at the Mitchell Ford River access. This looks like a work in process. I'm not sure. It's actually listed like a state park. Maybe it's new. Again, this is in White County, the sort of the southeastern portion of White County. And so we're here going to take a look at the Caney Fork River. All right, so about a mile downriver from the Mitchell Ford River access, where I just was, where I hiked a little bit, you could see how wide the river was there. A couple of more streams feed into the Caney Fork, and then I'm about a mile downriver. Take a look at this and tell me what you think. It expands greatly. It's unbelievable. Caney Fork just begins to swell. The water begins to just, have more volume. And then as we walk across the bridge and we take a look down the river a little bit further, you could even see a pontoon boat here in the background that someone has a dock there. So this river goes from what we saw at Clifty Road, where some people were swimming, beginning to widen out, but more shallow. It drops nearly 200 feet. I'll get the exact measurements and put in this video, but it drops so much by the time it gets here to Sparta, to this place where we're at right now, which is southeastern White County, that it just keeps picking up all of this watershed off of all of these hills, but then also all these extra streams and branches that come into the Caney Fork. And so again, got something that started off very humble and very small, and it's growing. All right, we're heading toward the overpass where Highway 111 goes over the Caney Fork River. And so by now the river has widened out a fair amount, and it has gathered even more creeks and streams along the way. And so we'll take some photos and a little video underneath the bridge. Hang on. Well, you saw the picture of that sign there. The river access is temporarily closed through March of next year to improve the drinking water quality in for the residents of Van Buren County. So I won't be able to take some photos from this river access. I'm going to take some from the top. Hang on.
Save up to 50% on your Babbel subscription at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
With Progressive's Home Quote Explorer, you can easily find the right home insurance for you, even if it's not with Progressive.
All right, we're down the Caney Fork River a little bit further. Our next stop, this is near Camp Clements. We are just south of Dole. Again, just in the edge of White County, perhaps even maybe in the edge of Van Buren, I'm not sure. But if you take a look, you can see some docks there. We'll go across the bridge. Camp Clements is here on the left. And the Calf Killer River out of White County at this point has already come into the Caney Fork, helping build its volume. But looking like a lake here. But again, we're heading toward Rock Island and Great Falls Dam. We'll be heading that way shortly. All right, so we are here at Rock Island, Tennessee, and we'll be in the little community of Rock Island, and then we'll go to Rock Island State Park. And again, we're going to take a few more views, maybe a few more videos of the Caney Fork River. By now, another river or two, I think the Rocky Fork River coming out of Warren County has already fed into the Caney Fork River by the time we get to this point, and it's of decent size. And so again, the Caney Fork is building some volume as it's heading toward the dam on this end of Center Hill Lake. And so but here it is, we're in Rock Island. On the weekend, this is a crowded place. There's a lot going on down here, a lot of kayaking, a lot of sightseeing. There's hiking. There's an ice cream shop down here on your left. There's a little market here that's got a little restaurant in it that's nice. It's just country food there. You turn left right there at that entrance to go to the state park. We're going to go straight for just a moment and cross over the river and take a look down this way. But thanks for coming along on this video. I hope this has been helpful, maybe a little educational. I've definitely been on some back roads today. It's been great. Thanks for tuning in, and let's go a little further. All right, on your left there, you turn down that road and it's Cotton's Marina. There's a restaurant down there as well. We'll see that on the way back and take a picture of that. But we're about to cross over the Caney Fork River. Again, we're going back into White County, and it's just scenic here. Beautiful, beautiful place. All right, so here we are at Rock Island. And by the way, I have a correction to make. At that last stop, that was Camp Mitchell, not Camp Clements. Camp Clements is on down the road. That was Camp Mitchell. And so now I'm at Rock Island near the state park. You've seen some of the photos already of the ice cream shop, some of the scenes there at Rock Island. Here, I want to show you the Collins River and the Caney Fork River and how they come together. All right, so here standing on the bridge at Rock Island, you have the Collins River here to the south coming in, and here's the old bridge, and I'm standing on, I guess, the newer bridge. You go across the road, and over there you see this is a fork. The Caney Fork is coming toward us. Collins River comes underneath this bridge and merges into the Caney Fork. And then the Caney Fork continues, and here's the Great Falls Dam. And this is where, even though this looks like a lake, this is the Caney Fork River. But below this dam, we have Rock Island State Park. I'll show you some footage of that. It's amazing. You've probably seen that maybe in one of my other videos. But then we have Center Hill Lake forms beyond this dam. And of course, Center Hill Dam is on the other end of the lake where it is dammed up and backed this lake up. It's amazing how much water is there. But again, this is all the Caney Fork River. It's amazing how something so small becomes something so big, and it's just been a blessing. Listen, this river has absolutely been a resource for generation after generation in terms of food on their table, transportation, all kinds of resources. People live, they need this water resource. And so Caney Fork's been a blessing. Here's some more footage of below the dam. All right, here's one of the views from below the dam. This is about a 1/16 of a mile below the dam. When it's really flooding, all of that rock is covered. Of course, this is Rock Island. Beautiful down there. People hike down there. You're not supposed to jump off of those bluffs, but the Great Falls Dam was built in 1916, and we did have a movie that was filmed here. Sylvester Stallone filmed a movie, a scene from a movie. I think the movie was Demolition Man. If you know if that's true or not, comment and put down in the comments if that was so. I believe it was Demolition Man, a movie back in maybe the 80s, maybe early 90s. They shot a scene where he was on the other side of the dam, and they obscured all of the signs that said Rock Island State Park. And that's when you could, back in that day, you could walk across the dam. Actually, I think it was still used as a bridge, as an alternate route. But since then, it's been closed. But anyhow, this is below the dam, some of the scenery. All right, so this is below this Great Falls Dam. This is Caney Fork River. This is below the dam. And off in the distance there, you can see the falls. Beautiful down here. And then about a half mile down the river, you begin to see Center Hill Lake form. But again, this is still part of the Caney Fork River. This is Rock Island State Park. All right, so here we are below Great Falls Dam. We're down here at the boat ramp. It's where the lake actually begins, or maybe it begins at Center Hill Dam, however you want to look at that. But we're here at Rock Island State Park. You can see the bluffs. You can see a boat there. People from Warren County and White County often put in here. You can see these bluffs that are huge. You can sometimes see bald eagles down here. But you can see out there in the distance, the lake opens up. And in fact, the next bridge that crosses the Caney Fork River is Sligo. And that's where we're headed next. So thanks for coming along on this long ride with me. I appreciate it. It's a great lesson in terms of the Caney Fork River and how it has grown over these 143 miles. So let's hop back in the truck and head to Sligo.
Over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Well, the cars are cool, but the deals are on fire. And all deals that make you more safe.
All right, so we're on Highway 70. We're coming in from Sparta, from that direction, from Rock Island to here. We went Old Kentucky Road, and so we're going down the hill here, going to go across Sligo Bridge. It's interesting because we're about to go over Center Hill Lake, Caney Fork River. Of course, it's really large by now. It's even bigger than what you just saw at Rock Island. And but a few videos back when I was on Highway 70 out there at Pleasant Hill, you could we saw where the Caney Fork River went under Highway 70 there, and it was so small there. I mean, it was probably 30 foot wide, something like that. But you travel from there to here on Highway 70. Of course, the river has went from many miles. It's dropped over 200 feet. And so, in doing so, it has picked up so many different branches and creeks and streams over the time that it is just massive. So we're going to pull down here towards Sligo Marina, and we're going to take a few photos and maybe a couple of videos of the lake here. And again, this is Caney Fork River, Center Hill Lake, still identified as Caney Fork. Thanks for following along on this video. Just have a little bit further to go if you'll hang in there with me. Thanks. All right, just turned off the highway there, and The bridge that you're about to see in this video frame is the third bridge here at Sligo. There was one that just went across the river. It would be below the water now. Then the last one was right beside this one. It just grew old, and they imploded it after they built this new bridge. So this is, again, Caney Fork River, Center Hill Lake. Going to take a few photos here just to show how something so small in its beginning has grown into something that is huge, huge. From some of the photos and videos that I just shared with you, you could tell that I went from Sligo to Hurricane Bridge, which is out on Cookeville Highway. Hurricane Bridge is one of those scenic bridges when you go over it. The lake, of course, has widened out even further through there. You have floating mill area where the lake is really wide there, a great recreational area. Edgar Evans State Park is in the northern part of Center Hill Lake. And so on this journey following the Caney Fork River, the next series of photos I'm going to share with you are of Center Hill Dam. Now, Center Hill Dam was built in 1948. Corps of Engineers built it. It was built or constructed for primarily flood control. Again, that was the same issue with the Great Falls Dam back at Rock Island, built for flood control. And so the TVA come in the 1940s and began to build a series of dams through the Tennessee Valley, and Center Hill Dam was one of those. So it was built in 1948. Center Hill Lake itself is over 64 miles long, and if I were to listen, if I was real technical, I could tell you how many acre feet of water and all of that. But listen, my formal studies was in pediatrics. So, but anyhow, 64 miles of lake. It's unbelievable. Shoreline, it's untold. Many, many miles of shoreline. It's crazy the number of how many shoreline miles there are at Center Hill Lake. The Center Hill Dam, though, 260 feet tall. And if you're ever standing on top of it, and I've been on top of it a number of times, in some of these photos, I'm on top of the dam. You can see this. 260 feet tall. It has 8 spillways, or 8 doors that open, floodgates. They are 50 feet wide each. And over the course of the next 2 years, the Corps of Engineers are going to be replacing every one of those floodgates. And again, they're 50 feet wide. In fact, I think this next week they're starting on that. They've scheduled some lane closures on the dam for this next week. But anyhow, here's some pics of Center Hill Dam. Here are some from aerial views. Here's some that I've taken close up. And then we're going to head down the Caney Fork River a little further. And the next time that I get to talk to you, I should be at a bridge that goes over the Caney Fork River near Betty's Island. Much of the Caney Fork footage I could show you below Center Hill Dam. There'll be a couple of pics, but most of that footage, you can find so much of that on the internet where people are fly fishing, trout fishing, all of those things. I won't bring those into this video. So I'm going to pick up being below Center Hill Dam with a couple of pics, and then you'll see me again near Betty's Island, down the river at on the Caney Fork, heading toward Gordonsville. So I'll see you in just a minute. All right, so I'm standing here on Betty Benz Road on this bridge that goes over the Caney. Right there is Betty's Island, and you can see that gravel bar there. There's a kayak rental place here near Betty's Island now, but they put in here, and they'll usually take out at Gordonsville or Elmwood in that area, and we'll be there in just a minute. But that's looking upstream back toward Center Hill Dam. Now, of course, it's a number of miles below Center Hill Dam, but this again is the Caney Fork River below the dam, and it's heading toward Gordonsville, Elmwood area. We'll take a look at the other side of the bridge. Let me zoom back out, and we'll go to the other side of the bridge. The interstate is right past those trees, I-40. All right, so going downstream as you're heading toward Gordonsville, what a view. That's amazing. You can see some kayakers way off in the distance there. Again, the Caney Fork River. Remember, it started in Cumberland County, and then it moved through Cumberland County off of the Cumberland Plateau, and it dropped 880 feet. I've got that correct now, LOL. And it goes through Scotts Gulf, which is that drop. Scotts Gulf is a video for itself. I need to do some video footage there. A lot of kayaking there as far as rapids. It drops in elevation, some dangerous kayaking there, and some hiking trails. And they've got a new state park there. That's one of the newest state parks in Tennessee, is Scotts Gulf. But so this Caney Fork River started in Cumberland County, goes down through Scotts Gulf, dropping off the plateau, gets down into White County, and again picking up all these streams. Calf Killer River goes into it, Rocky River, Collins River, and those are coming in from Warren County. So this Caney Fork River has touched Cumberland County. It touches the edge of Van Buren. It's in White County, edge of Warren County. Of course, it's in DeKalb County, and now we're in Smith County. And so when you take a look at this river, it's running now toward the Cumberland River, toward Carthage. And so our next stop will be in like Gordonsville, Elmwood. There'll be a bridge or two there. And again, kayakers get in and out there, but wonderful view. If you've never been to Betty's Island, you need to kayak there. You put in at Betty's Island, and as you go downstream, you go you go under the interstate, and after going through the interstate, under the interstate, you come to a little fork in the river where if you look to your left, probably about a quarter of a mile past the interstate, if you look to your left when you're on the river, you'll see the railroad crossing going over the Smith Fork, and that is Sebo Wishy that I mentioned earlier in the video. But anyhow, beautiful footage here, Caney Fork River, heading toward Carthage, and we'll be over in Gordonsville in just a moment. All right, we're here in Gordonsville and Elmwood. We're here at the Gordonsville Access. Right there on the right, you can see that ramp. That is the Gordonsville Access ramp. Off in the distance, you see an old bridge going over the river. And again, we're looking upstream. We're looking back up toward Betty's Island, toward that direction. Of course, we're a handful of miles down the river. That bridge that you see there, if I remember this correctly, at the very end of that bridge, there's a turn, like almost a 90-degree turn. It's one of the few bridges in the United States that had that type of a crook in it, or type of a turn in it. Of course, that bridge has been long since closed, but here we are in Gordonsville, and again, we're standing on top of the Caney Fork River. Over the course of the flooding, you have all kinds of trees down that get hung up in the river. The Center Hill Dam will generate power, and then they will sometimes run 1 or 2 generators or more, and when they do, this river gets up high. It gets up in the edge of that person's yard there, and it's nearly violent when it runs when they run 2 generators. I've kayaked it when they've had 2, as far as at the end of the kayak journey, they had 2 turned on, and the thing is moving. You want to kayak when there's maybe 1 generator, or you want to plan it. You call Center Hill Lake, or excuse me, Cordell Hull and Center Hill Dam, those types of Corps of Engineer websites, and you can find all kinds of lake conditions, but then also for Center Hill Dam, you can find out when they are generating. And so again, that's looking upstream. We'll go across the bridge here, and this is looking downstream as it's heading toward Carthage. And just beautiful scenery here. No one's kayaking here. All the kayakers have not made it here yet. They'll make it here probably in a couple of hours. But anyhow, next stop will be over close to Carthage. All right, so we've come from the Gordonsville River access through Stonewall. Now we are near Elmwood, but take a look ahead of me there. Look at that sign, 70 North, 70 North. So 70 North, back in the very beginning of this video, when we turned off of Plateau Road and took a left at the beginning of the Caney Fork River, we were on 70 North. How about that? And so, in fact, take a look at this picture, the little blue dot, that's where I'm sitting on 70 North. And so now we are in Smith County, Tennessee, in Elmwood, heading toward Carthage, and this Caney Fork River has traveled 143 miles, and it started out right there close to 70 North on that highway, and here it is, we're on 70 North, and we're about to come to where the Caney Fork River empties into the Cumberland River. It's amazing, you know, when they built these roads way back in the day, I mean the primitive roads like 70 North, when that was first built, listen, the water knew how to, listen, the water knew best. It knew how to navigate a path through these hills. And so they built the roads, of course, near these streams. But here we have the Caney Fork River starting on 70 North, and it's going to end up here on 70 North as well. So we're in Elmwood now, and we're about to come to a bridge, the last bridge that we have that crosses over the Caney Fork River before the Caney Fork River then turns and heads into the Cumberland River. So hold tight and we'll be on that bridge. All right, here we are overlooking the Caney Fork River, looking back upstream. We see a fishing boat off in the distance there, if you can see that. But here we are. This is the last bridge that crosses the Caney Fork River. And we've taken a lot of video footage and photos from many bridges on this video. But this is the last one. It's here in Elmwood, near Carthage. And again, we're looking upstream. Got a blue heron there off in the distance. I don't know if you can pick that up or not. Maybe he'll come closer to us. Anyhow, let's go across the road and let's take a look and see downstream as it's heading toward Carthage. Again, about a quarter of a mile, maybe a half mile at most. It turns left and heads toward the Cumberland River. There was a huge osprey there in the water. I don't know if I've caught that or not. He just flew off. But huge bird. Ospreys are around here. They're around the lake. Certainly they're around this river. But again, Caney Fork River, the last bridge. There goes that blue heron right there. It's my favorite bird. If you watch my videos, you probably know that. Anyhow, thank you for riding along. Let's make one more stop where the Caney Fork goes into the Cumberland River. All right, behind me is the Cumberland River. I am in South Carthage, or in Carthage, Tennessee. The image that I just shared with you of the Caney Fork coming into the Cumberland River is about 1/8 of a mile upstream. No access to that in terms of being on the bank, a lot of private property, things like that. But the Caney Fork has traveled 143 miles from the Cumberland Plateau up in Cumberland County, down through Scotts Gulf, into White County, edge of Van Buren, Warren, DeKalb. It went through the Great Falls Dam, and then we have Center Hill Lake, which is still Caney Fork River. Then we have Center Hill Dam, and then below Center Hill Dam we have, again, Caney Fork River. And we have been through Betty's Island to the Gordonsville access to Elmwood, and now we are here where the Caney Fork spills into the Cumberland River. And it's been amazing to see something that started out with such humble beginnings. I've said that a number of times. Humble beginnings that turned into something that was huge, huge. And I've said all of that, and I have shown you all of this. One, it's interesting, I think, if you're someone from Middle Tennessee, or you've canoed the Caney, or you've been on Center Hill Lake, it's interesting to know where the Caney Fork River starts and maybe some of its path. But I've said all of that, thinking about how the Caney Fork started out small, and then it grows, and then we have Center Hill Lake that's huge. But the river itself is grown so much from all of these other streams that feed into it. And then now we're here at the Cumberland River, where all of that water goes on to even greater things. And I've said all that to say this, is that great things can sometimes come from humble beginnings. So we have Jesus, who come from heaven to earth. The Christmas story. He come in humility, very humble beginnings, humble fashion. He's there laid in a manger, and he's humble, meek, and mild. But then as Jesus grows up and goes into his public ministry, it begins to grow. In fact, Jesus and 12 disciples, something that started in humility, something that started with a little movement, handful of people, all of a sudden blossoms into what we have today, millions upon millions and millions of followers of Jesus Christ. Something that started so small, something that started in humility, has grown into something that's absolutely enormous, the church of the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, going back to the Caney Fork, when it would go through those transitions, and you would see Great Falls Lake, Great Falls Dam, and then you would see Center Hill Lake, but all along it's still called the Caney Fork River. And then you see, of course, Center Hill Lake, how huge that is, but still the signs still say Caney Fork River. It gets all of its identity with the Caney Fork River. Whatever ponding effect or lake effect, whatever the TVA, the Corps of Engineers, have done in terms of impounding the lake, all of that, it still has its identity as the Caney Fork River. Well, listen, as the church grows, as the church has untold millions of people that come to faith in Jesus Christ, our identity goes all the way back to its founder, the beginning, the Lord Jesus Christ. He is in us, and we are in him. The Caney Fork River, it's in Center Hill Lake. It is. And Center Hill Lake is in the Caney Fork River. But we are in Christ Jesus, and Christ Jesus is in us. And listen, if you've been born again and you started off just kind of crawling and taking baby steps with the Lord, and now you're walking, listen, that type of beginning starts in humility, where we humble ourselves before the Lord. And then all of a sudden we begin to grow, and our lives turn into something far greater than we could have ever imagined. Again, that's the power of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so with this video, I just want to ask you, do you know the Lord Jesus Christ? I hope you do. I hope that this video has been informational, but today I hope it's inspirational that if you've never put your faith in Jesus Christ, you'd realize that he can take something that's so small, like the faith of a mustard seed, and he can turn it into something amazing. So if you put your faith in Jesus Christ, he can turn your life into something greater and more impactful than anything you could have ever imagined. Listen, I've enjoyed tracking the Caney Fork River. I have covered a lot of miles doing this. It's been fun. It's been hot. I've hiked a little bit. It's been worthwhile, though. And I can just tell you this, following the Lord Jesus Christ, tracking his steps, seeing where our beginning begins, following after him, allowing him to expand your life and change your life, it's worth it as well. Listen, that's Living in Liberty with Peewee. Thanks for tuning into this video. A little longer than most of my videos, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and be sure and look in the description. You'll see some links to other videos that are related to the Caney Fork River and Center Hill Lake. Thanks for tuning in.